A widow stands in the burning dust outside the limestone gates of an Israelite city. The midday sun is relentless, baking the stones beneath her sandals. Our modern view of justice. We picture a sterile courtroom. We picture an impartial judge sitting behind a high wooden bench. They do not have to beg. They do not have to grovel. They work with their own hands to feed their families, protected by a law that refuses to let the powerful extract every last drop of profit from the earth. The ancient Hebrew economy forbids maximum extraction. It demands that you leave something on the table for the person who has nothing. Leaving the corners of the field is not an act of pity. It is an act of mishpat. The landowner is not giving away what is his. He is returning what already belongs to the vulnerable by divine right. Mishpat literally structures the society to ensure no one falls through the cracks. It bakes intervention into the daily routine of planting and reaping. The ancient agrarian world is gone. The barley fields are paved over. The city gates are archaeological ruins, but the spirit of that law did not vanish when the fields disappeared. The quartet of the vulnerable is still standing right in front of us, living in a world that still insists on maximizing every single margin. And that brings us to the most uncomfortable question of all. You do not walk past ancient limestone city gates. And you probably do not own a barley field, but you live in an economy that operates on the exact same gravitational pull Amos was staring down in the 8th century BC. We picture a blindfolded woman made of bronze, holding a set of perfectly balanced scales in one hand and a drawn sword in the other. You navigate a world that celebrates maximum extraction. A system designed to harvest every single corner of the field and sweep the dirt completely clean. Think about the way modern corporate machinery functions. The glow of a spreadsheet screen at 2 in the morning, calculating how to squeeze one more decimal point of profit out of an overseas supply chain. The cold, automated ping of an eviction notice hitting a single mother's inbox because an algorithmic rent system detected a missed deadline. The sterile hum of a server, farm processing predatory loan approvals in a fraction of a second, legally binding the desperate to debts they can never mathematically escape. It is all perfectly legal. It is highly efficient. And, according to the biblical prophets, it is an absolute catastrophe. You are taught, perhaps implicitly by the culture you swim in, that the goal of your life, your business, and your time is to optimize your output. You are told to eliminate the margins, to keep every drop of what you earn, to defend your corners against all intruders. But the biblical concept of mishpat introduces a radically different architecture for human flourishing. The margin is not a waste of resources. It is the breathing room where justice survives. We assume justice is primarily a mechanism of reaction. It is what happens when someone breaks a rule, when a line is crossed, when you intentionally leave the edges of your time unbooked so you can notice the coworker who is quietly drowning. You are practicing mishpat when you run a business and choose to pay a wage that cuts into your maximum profit margin so your employees can actually breathe under the weight of their own bills. You are leaving the corners of the field. You are refusing the phantom justice of the modern world, a justice that says as long as you do not break the penal code, you owe nothing to the people breaking apart around you. We are haunted by a Western system that only reacts to crimes, but we belong to a God who demands proactive restoration. Yet, if we stop here, we turn the biblical story into nothing more than a crushing social manifesto. We turn it into a heavy ethical burden that we will inevitably fail to uphold. Because the terrifying truth is, we have all harvested our corners. We have all walked past the city gate with our eyes straight ahead. If active, unyielding mishpat is the standard. We are all the wealthy merchants of Amos chapter 5, standing squarely in the crosshairs of divine fury. God did not just demand mishpat from the ancient Israelite landowners. He did not just demand it from you, when a penalty must be exacted to balance a cosmic ledger. And it does carry that weight sometimes. He stepped into the timeline to enact it himself. And to understand how he finally tipped the scales, you have to leave the golden grain fields and travel to a skull-shaped hill just outside the walls of Jerusalem. Wood scrapes against rough limestone. Heavy iron spikes tear through human flesh. The sky over Golgotha turns violently, unnaturally black. Blood drips into the dry Judean dust. It is a Friday afternoon in the 1st century. A Roman execution squad is doing what they do best. The crowd jeers. The religious leaders mock. The soldiers gamble for a blood-stained tunic, throwing dice at the base of a splintered beam. Jesus of Nazareth hangs suspended between heaven and earth. He is suffocating. His lungs are collapsing. For centuries, Western theology has looked at this moment primarily through the lens of Lady Justice. We see the blindfolded goddess. We see the perfectly balanced scales. We see the heavy sword coming down. We explain the cross almost entirely as a cold legal transaction. A law was broken. A penalty was owed. A cosmic judge demanded retribution. And a substitute stepped in to take the devastating blow. And that legal, substitutionary framework holds profound biblical truth. But if you isolate that transaction, if you strip away the cry of the Hebrew prophets, you miss the terrifying beauty of what is actually happening in the dark. The cross is not a reactive courtroom verdict. It is a proactive rescue mission. But if you look closer at the ancient Hebrew vocabulary breathing beneath the text, at what actually happens in the dirt of the ancient Near East to you, look closely at who is hanging on the wood. He has no ancestral land. He has no legal muscle. He is stripped naked. He is abandoned by his closest friends. He is crushed by a corrupt political and religious system that decided it was more efficient to kill him than to listen to him. Jesus has become the quartet of the vulnerable. He is the ultimate outcast. He is the ultimate victim of a rigged marketplace. He is the ultimate poor man, falling through the cracks of human cruelty. God does not stay in the ivory palaces of heaven. God does not sit behind a sterile wooden bench waiting for the scales to balance. God steps into the dirt. He steps into the crushing, extractive machinery of the world. He absorbs the systemic brokenness. He takes the blow. He takes the shame. He takes the death. This is the ultimate. Cosmic Mishpat, the creator of the universe, looks at a humanity that is tearing itself apart. A humanity trapped in a relentless cycle of extraction and exploitation. And he physically intervenes. He does not send an angelic army to wipe out the oppressors. He becomes the oppressed. He lets the sword fall on his own chest. He lets the rushing floodwaters roll over his own head. He is not just balancing a cosmic ledger. He is actively reconstructing a broken world from the inside out. He is buying back the indentured servants. Start to see something the courtroom reading completely misses. Biblical justice is not a sword that punishes. It is a fabric that restores, with his own blood. He is returning the stolen inheritance. He is becoming the unharvested corner of the field so that a starving, dying humanity can finally reach out, eat, and live. The cross is the ultimate, unyielding intervention. But that intervention was never meant to stay frozen on a hill. In the 1st century, it was designed to reach forward, to pull you out of whatever system is currently grinding you into the dirt. A widow stood at the gates with nothing, and a prophet roared for a flood to wash the corruption away. A reaper dropped a sheaf of golden barley, and a divine law commanded him to leave it in the dust. A landowner turned away from the highest olive branches, and a starving immigrant found life in the margins. A society functioned with ruthless economic efficiency, and the Creator called their worship songs an abomination. A modern world built statues with heavy blindfolds, and the ancient Hebrew texts demanded eyes wide open. A cosmic ledger condemned a broken humanity, and the judge himself stepped out of the courtroom to absorb the debt. A savior hung bleeding on a Roman cross, and the ultimate act of restorative justice tore the world wide open. The central question of the prophets isn't, who broke the law? It is this: who is falling through the cracks? One word, one unyielding intervention. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the corners of the field, not the massive, dramatic courtroom verdicts, not the thundering voice of Amos at the city gate, but the quiet, deliberate act of leaving a few stalks of barley on the ground. The unharvested edges are not wasted space. They are the breathing room of God. He built an entire economic system around the idea: that the margins of your life do not belong to you, they belong to the person who has nothing left. If you are in a season where the machinery of this world is grinding you down, where you feel like the human collateral of a system that only cares about your maximum output, hear this. You are not invisible. The God of the Bible is not wearing a blindfold, and he is not waiting for a technical legal violation to act. He is actively seeking out the vulnerable, rushing like a flash flood into the dry, cracked places of your life. And if you are in a season of prosperity, maybe it is time to stop harvesting every last stalk. And may the God who refused to wear a blindfold walk with you through your own dry riverbeds and bring you out carrying a justice that heals. And the answer changes how you read every single chapter of the Old Testament. It shifts the ground beneath how you understand the ministry of Jesus, the early church, and the ultimate climax of the biblical story. We have taken a massive, vibrant, world-altering Hebrew concept and shrunk it down to fit inside a Western legal code. We have settled for a justice that merely punishes the wicked. When the ancient texts are screaming, her husband is gone, her land has been absorbed by a wealthier neighbor, her sons have been taken as indentured servants to pay a debt, for a justice that actively reconstructs the world, we have settled for a justice that waits for a crime to happen. The biblical writers are demanding a justice that goes looking for the vulnerable before they ever hit the ground. To feel the weight of what we lost, you have to step out of the ancient dust for a moment and look at the image we replaced it with. Walk into almost any major courthouse in the Western world, and you will find her standing in the marble lobby. Lady Justice. She is usually carved from cold bronze or white stone, standing rigid under the sterile glare of fluorescent lights. Over her eyes is a thick cloth blindfold, representing strict impartiality, the idea that the law should not see wealth, poverty, status, or influence when rendering a verdict. In her right hand, she grips a heavy, two-edged sword, ready to deliver sudden retribution the moment a crime is proven. And in her left hand, she holds a set of scales, waiting patiently for the evidence of a transgression to tip the balance. This is how the modern mind understands fairness. It is a system of reaction. We build the laws, we set the boundaries, and then we wait. The system only moves when someone steps over the line. The sword only swings when a written statute is violated. She did not incur and cannot clear. The men walking past her at the city gate are wearing fine linen if no one is actively breaking the penal code. The system assumes that justice is being upheld and the society is healthy. But the ancient Hebrew mind did not have a blindfolded goddess. They did not have a sterile courtroom or a mechanism that sat dormant until a crime was committed. If you took the modern statue of Lady Justice and placed it in the middle of an ancient Israelite village, the biblical prophets would not recognize her as a symbol of righteousness. They would recognize her as a terrifying failure, because a justice that is intentionally blind is a justice that cannot see the widow starving in the dust outside the gates. Biblical justice is not a reactive penalty for a broken rule. It is a proactive intervention to repair a broken world. In the Western legal framework, justice is what happens when someone does something illegal. But in the ancient Near Eastern framework, the prophets understood that the most devastating injustices were often completely legal. The wealthy neighbor who absorbed the widow's land did not break a contract. The merchants who bought the indentured servants had the papyrus receipts signed in ink. The economic system was functioning exactly as it was designed, transferring wealth upward. Yet the human fabric of the community was slowly tearing apart. They smell of crushed olives, roasted meat, and imported wine. They are the elders, the merchants, the decision makers. To fix that kind of tearing, you cannot wait for someone to break a law. You need a different kind of justice entirely. You need a word that refuses to wear a blindfold. And to find that word, you have to go back to the city gate, to a herdsman whose voice is about to shake the foundations of Israel. The year is roughly 750 BC. The northern kingdom of Israel is experiencing a golden age. The borders are secure. The trade routes are wide open, The merchant class is exploding with unprecedented wealth. Summer homes are being built from carved ivory. Winter homes are constructed from heavy hewn stone. Vineyards are planted. The economy is booming. And the religion is booming. 2. Walk into the royal sanctuary at Bethel. The smoke of roasting animal fat is thick in the air. The choirs are singing complex psalms. Heavy silver shekels are pouring into the temple treasury, clinking against the offering chests. The festivals are packed, with worshippers lifting their hands. A nation prospers. A religion thrives. A people celebrate. And God hates every single second of it. Amos walks into this city. He is not a priest. He is not a politician. He is a shepherd from the rocky, unforgiving southern hills of Tekoa. And according to the legal contracts of the day, they have done nothing wrong. They are not breaking the technical laws of commerce. His hands are calloused. His clothes smell like sheep and dirt. He stands in the shadow of the ivory palaces. He watches the silver trade hands. He listens to the chanting in the sanctuary. And then he looks at the city gate. The gate is the ancient courtroom. It is where the elders sit in the shade. It is where disputes are settled, where land deeds are transferred, and where debts are ruthlessly collected. Amos sees the righteous being sold for silver. He sees the needy being traded for a pair of sandals. He sees the heads of the poor being trampled into the dust of the earth. He sees the vulnerable being pushed aside in the legal proceedings. The wealthy are taking out loans, leveraging the ancestral lands of the poor as collateral, and then legally evicting them when the crops inevitably fail. It is technically legal. It is economically efficient, and it is an abomination. Through Amos, God unleashes one of the most terrifying indictments in all of Scripture. He tells them to stop singing. He tells them their religious festivals make him sick. He tells them the smell of their offerings is a stench in his nostrils. The temple sacrifices are not a covering for their greed. They are an insult to his character. They are not committing a recognizable crime. But a herdsman named Amos is watching them, and his chest is heaving. In Amos chapter 5, God demands only one thing. He does not ask for more prayers. He does not ask for better theology. He demands a complete overhaul of how the humans at the bottom of the hierarchy are being treated. But let justice roll down like waters. Amos screams into the marketplace. And righteousness, like an ever-flowing stream. You have probably heard that verse. It was carved into the granite of the civil rights movement. It is quoted by politicians and preachers. But the power of that verse is not found in the English translation. To feel the earthquake Amos is causing, you have to look at the exact Hebrew word he hurls at the ivory palaces. Amos chapter 5, verse 24. We read the English translation, and we hear a demand for strict legal fairness. The word translated as justice here is the Hebrew noun Mishpat. It appears over 400 times in the Old Testament, and it comes from the root verb shafat, which essentially means to judge, to decide, or to govern. If you only look at the root, it is easy to see how Western translators mapped this onto the image of a courtroom, with a fury that will eventually become an entire book of the Bible. He watches the scales being subtly tilted in the marketplace. But in the ancient Near East, to judge did not just mean to punish the guilty. To govern did not just mean to enforce a static set of rules. It meant to physically intervene on behalf of the powerless. Mishpat is the action of seeking out the vulnerable and advocating for them. It is taking concrete steps to correct a systemic imbalance. If something about digging into the original language like this is shifting how you see the text, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week, we go deeper into these ancient words than you knew was possible. So Amos pairs Mishpat with another massive concept to make his point. He cries out, "Let justice, Mishpat, roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream." The word for righteousness is tzedakah. In Hebrew poetry, these two words are almost always married. They are the twin pillars of the biblical worldview. Psalm kol mekumenta kolme. Verse 5 tells us that God loves Mishpat and tzedakah. If tzedakah is a life of right relationship, living in a way that honors the image of God in your neighbor, then Mishpat is the active intervention, required to bring things back to that standard when it breaks down. Picture a dry riverbed, a wadi baking in the brutal Judean sun. He watches the poor being sold for the price of a pair of sandals. He watches a society functioning exactly as it was designed to function efficient. The dirt is cracked, parched, and splitting open under the heat. When Amos says, "Let Mishpat roll down like waters," he is invoking the sensory shock of a flash flood tearing through the desert. He is describing a sudden, rushing force that fills in the deep cracks, brings life to the dead soil, and levels out the uneven, broken ground. Mishpat is not a legal penalty waiting for a crime. It is a restorative flood rushing into the cracks of society. When a widow loses her ancestral land, Mishpat is the communal action of getting it back for her. When an orphan is left unprotected, Mishpat is the neighbor stepping in to become a shield. It is not blind. It is hypervigilant, scanning the margins of the community to see who is being left behind. But how did God actually expect this to work? On a Tuesday afternoon in ancient Israel, the blueprint is hiding in an agricultural law that most modern readers skip right over. Harvest time in the Judean hill country. The barley is golden. The stalks are heavy. The sickles flash in the morning sun. Workers move systematically through the fields. They cut the grain. They bind the stalks into heavy sheaves. They carry the harvest toward the threshing floor. Sweat drips. Dust rises. The air smells like hot chaff and dry earth. A worker accidentally drops a bundle of barley, profitable, and entirely blind to the human collateral accumulating in the shadows of its walls. Most people assume the Bible's view of justice looks like. He stops. He turns to pick it up, but the landowner steps in. Leave it. A reaper misses a corner of the field. He raises his sickle to finish the row. Leave it. An olive tree is beaten with a heavy wooden rod. The branches shake. A few dark olives cling to the highest boughs. A worker reaches up to strip them bare. Leave them. This is not a polite suggestion. This is not casual charity. This is the law of gleaning embedded in Leviticus and Deuteronomy. Moses commands the nation to intentionally leave the edges of their property unharvested. The dropped sheaves are no longer the landowner's property. The forgotten grapes are legally off limits. They belong to the quartet, the widow, the orphan, the immigrant, the poor. The biblical text groups these four categories of people together so often. Scholars call them the quartet of the vulnerable. Zechariah names them. Jeremiah defends them. God builds an entire economic framework around their survival. They have no ancestral land. They have no legal muscle. They have no safety net. If the harvest is swept completely clean, they starve. So the law forces a margin. The widow walks behind the reapers. She gathers the fallen stalks. The immigrant enters the vineyard. He plucks the remaining grapes.